Oh god, this patch is too big, guys. It's far too big now. I've made as many videos as possible, but there is no stopping the fact that this is an epic amount of patch notes to go through. I'll try to do my best. If you haven't seen the portal already, should I start talking about something specific that you're interested in, I probably have a more dedicated video on that topic coming up, but this is it, guys. The head of the snake. I think the most important thing for me to express is the fact that on paper, this update looks finally like an update for everyone. Quite often in Guild Wars 2, there'll be a really awesome patch, but it only appeals to, say, the PvEers, or it only appeals to, say, the raiders. Well, this is a patch that appeals to everyone. The raiders, the casual PvEers, the Fractal players, the world versus worlders, and the PvPers. I think that that is what, on paper, has made it so exceptional. And as we go through the video, hopefully you'll see why I say that, because there's been pretty big changes for all those areas. This is a double release. This isn't one patch, this is basically two. Once upon a time, we used to have raid releases as their own releases, and we used to have living world releases, which also had their own space at separate times. They're coming together this time. It's essentially two patches in one. As of right this second, the head of the snake is live. You can download the patch while you watch this video maybe, and I'll try to run you through all of the most significant changes as far as I see it. So for the footage, I'll just open up and say the character you're looking at is geared out with a bunch of the new stuff from the patch. New headpiece, gloves, a new very special weapon, which I'll talk about in a second, and it's generally just trying to show a lot of things off. It's not necessarily some kind of meta crazy good build. In fact, a part of the build that I'm running is using a fairly hacky dev item, which is an amulet in PvE that has as many stats as a PvP amulet, which is kind of cool. So anyway, let's talk about what is actually coming to the game. I know you guys are keen to hear it. Number one, the story has been continued. This I haven't played for myself yet. Through any of these videos that I'm putting up, I haven't played the story myself. You will find no spoilers, therefore, for the story in this video. However, through people that I've spoken to, several different people, I've heard it be exceptionally well rated this time. Apparently it's very funny, and some people who have never even liked the story before have actually, two different people have actually come to me and said, yeah, I really enjoyed this. So apparently the story is very good on this one, and of course it has been pushed further forwards. Number two, we are getting an entirely new open world map to explore. That's right, more of Tyria is now available. Yes, it's set in Kryta. Yes, it's to the northeast of Divinity's Reach. Yes, it's called Lake Doric. That's right, it was Lake Doric. All this speculation we did before the patch totally paid off. Damn it, you sly dogs at ArenaNet for deceiving us. The new map is Lake Doric. The thing is, it's not that old classic alpha map that maybe they just picked back up. It's its own thing. It's totally new. It's not as big as the original alpha map that we have been talking about. It's about the same size as the other Living World Season 3 maps that we've had. And I think for several reasons that they've done that, but we'll get into that on its own video. And exploration of that map and what that map contains, again, in its own video, which is available on the portal or hell on an annotation right now. So if you're interested in the new map and the new place to explore beyond just what you're looking at on screen right now, check that out. So that's number two. Number three, we also have a new raid wing. And this is pretty significant because it's also a lot like getting a new map. Okay, this new raid is set in another new area of the worlds. I'll leave a ... on that just now as to where. The wing itself has its own story as well, of course, which looks insane, and it is set in a very cool place. This raid I won't be playing for a few days, and even then I might not be good enough to clear it for a little bit, but there is a link on screen right now, and again at the portal, for my early sneak peek inside. I don't go past the bosses and so forth, so it's not very spoiler heavy, but based on the advice of a developer, I did go in there to see what it was all about, and it is incredibly exciting. Now, more details on that coming up, of course, but if you want my blind reaction to what this is, again, we've got a little video on that. I would seriously recommend you check that out, guys. Where it is and what it is might just blow your mind. And number four, I think, of the patch that's pretty significant is, yes, a new legendary weapon. So for those of us who like earning money and having goals and things to do in the game, there is another legendary. ArenaNet continue to make good on their promise to add a new set of legendaries with Heart of Thorns and its Living World content. This new legendary is a rifle. It's called the HMS Divinity. You're seeing it in the coverage over this video series. I'm using rifle wherever I possibly can. It is a very interesting legendary. I think on the face of it, a lot of people might not like the idea because because the perks of this legendary are more some different things than you'd expect. Like the gun itself, the rifle, doesn't probably appeal to that many people. It's not that flashy, it looks kind of clunky and so forth. But what the draw of this legendary is the sounds that it makes. The epic booming cannon fire of airship battles. Rings from this gun. It's very cool in that respect. It also has a really epic sheath unsheath animation where you spin it around in your hand. And the other thing that makes this kind of an interesting legendary is where rifle stands within contemporary PvE metas. Not too many people or classes run rifle these days, and so that may cut down on the amount of people who want it, but it is another legendary with this patch, and you'll be seeing plenty of that. Amazingly, despite all of this stuff that I've just mentioned, these four main things, it's changes to the fractals of the mists that dominate a lot of this set of patch notes. There is pages of changes to fractals of the mists. This fractals as well is actually an area I'm a big fan of lately, and so what I'm going to do is a specific spotlight on all of that in a separate video. Not everybody is interested in fractals, and there's so much to get through, it's totally worth a video on its own. So that is also on the portal, so a ton of fractal changes in addition to all of these other things, but they will not be covered here. Instead, I'm going to talk about the other things. There's also other stuff, by the way, which have been changes to the game, have been quite profound, and I think is very much worth talking about, even though it never made into the patch notes. So I'm going to start off with that, and I'm going to start off with one of the hugest things to have come to Guild Wars 2 for this this update, the Head of the Snake. That is a new downstate skill. Yeah, you heard that correct. There's a new skill 5 for your downstate, for everyone's in this patch. So interestingly, number one, it's a downstate skill. Number two, it's a signet. It's a downstate signet. So signets in this game are abilities that give you a passive effect until you activate them, and then while they're on recharge, they lose that passive effect. So this downstate skill gives you a new passive that augments all of your other downstate skills. Yeah, does that blow your mind? Well, the passive is, it's called Signet of Agony, and the passive is that it causes you to steal life with your other downstate abilities, which is kind of cool, and I especially am interested in the synergy that therefore has with, say, a necromancer or a blood magic necromancer who goes down and already was stealing life. So you can sustain yourself in PvE and downstate a lot better now just because you have this on your bar. It's tied to the new mastery, so you activate the mastery, you get the downstate skill Signet of Agony, and this will buff you up, allow you to stay down on the battlefield as long as you're still hitting things. And then it has the active. The active is an explosion that deals big damage to your foes. And even crazier than this, it's not just a tap the button and leave it there, it's a channeled skill. Channeled skills have a weird history in Guild Wars 2. In the devs were playing with them in the early iterations of the game, and then they've kind of got wheedled out and we don't really see them. So this is an idea. The longer you hold down the button, the more potent this skill will be, the bigger the AoE. If you're looking at the footage here, you'll see exactly what I mean. This is something you very rarely see in Guild Wars 2. It's mostly like on things like trebuchets you see channeled skills. Well, we now have a channeled Signet downstate skill, and you can make this explosion radius much bigger. So it's really crazy, and it has a lot of different effects on the game. So first of all, I love the feeling of this being here now, that a new player, right, will start playing Guild Wars 2, have 4 downstate skills for all this time, and then eventually finally be able to unlock such a potent thing. That's what masteries really should always have been about, and I think that that's very cool. So it's a shame, I guess, that I'll only be able to do it once per account, and obviously it won't affect things like World versus World or PvP. But then there's some other things to think about, right? Maybe some Debbie Downer talks. What's your guys' opinion on the fact they've basically just power creeped a huge amount of the player base because we have even more capabilities now? Everyone has. Do you guys think this is a big problem? It is interesting to me. I did check this. It appears to be disabled in the raid and the existing raid that already is in the game. So it's not going to impact this really high-end stuff. It's not going to impact the competitive stuff. So this is more of an open world thing, but it also works in fractals. It's a bit like revive orbs. They seem to be happy to let people in fractals do this stuff. Is this good? Is it okay, since people don't discriminate much in the open world anyway? It's really weird to me to think that this is a really profound change that you need the head of the snake to have. Think about a year's time, guys. When new people come into the game, they're not going to have a downstate skill that everyone else has unless they pay 400 gems for this update. Is that a bit aggressive? I think there's a lot of really cool discussions to come out of this. The patch notes are not the time to go into them, but do drop your comments. Let me know what you think about that. So yeah, a new downstate skill. Moving on. We do also have a new stat set for the game. This is the first time Living World Season 3 has done this. This is the 4th map we've had, but none of the prior maps actually added new stat types to Guild Wars 2. They've added new foods and things, not a new stat type entirely. We'll probably do more discussion on this on the specific video about Lake Doric, but there is a new stat set. This is essentially a condition damage equivalent of Zealots. So Zealots is a healing set that lets you do reasonable damage at the same time, but power damage, this is condition damage. So it's 4 stats, it's condition main, it's precision main, and then it's concentration minor and healing power minor. So maybe that will find some use somewhere. We will have to see. I can think of a couple of builds, but again, maybe not the time. But a new stat set, I'm very happy to see the Living World doing that. Another big change, obviously, with a new raid coming out. It's implicit, but this here has been a change, I think. I'm actually running around in this video wearing the Envoy armor level 2. So we won't get legendary armor in this patch. They've already stated that. That's fine. But the next level to build into your legendary armor with this new wing available does appear to now be there. I can't see yet how hard that is to unlock, how difficult it is to do the collection. I'm just wearing it for you guys to see. But I'm guessing because we can wear it or preview it, it's now actually in there in the game. So that's pretty cool. And you're looking at what it looks like on a heavy char right now. Another change, again, associated with the raid, but not talked about anywhere. One of the achievements for the raid actually offers you a magnetite shard converter. So this isn't technically a gobbler, but it's one of these items you can double click and you can spend each day some magnetite shards on a real reward of some kind. Again, I haven't seen what that is, but that is pretty cool for the game too. I think that magnetite shards have this kind of permanent sync now. Obviously as well, along with that, and we won't go into the specific details here, but there's a ton of new minis, back pieces, armor from the map and the raid wing, which you're seeing a variety of, as I've said, in the background. So those are some notable changes that aren't even in the patch notes. Let's move on to the official list and what was of note to me. Again, as always, this is not everything. There's a link in the description if you feel the need to look at the smaller, like, little bug fixes and stuff. But here's the big stuff. Now, number one, let's kick it off. Auric Basin multi-loot has been nerfed. I've talked about this enough this week. Followers of my channel will already know the situation that we're in here. But basically, you are no longer going to get tons of rewards from doing a single Auric Basin meta event. This probably will affect Ecto prices and the Ecto market. So maybe have your eye on that. I have no idea whether it will swing up, whether it will swing down, for how long in either direction. But I think that that's probably something to pay attention to. Globs of ectoplasm are one of the main things that we use as players to get most stuff in the game, and so a big shift in that economy could be a big shift for how rewarding this game feels to play, or how punishing this game feels to play. So that should be pretty interesting. We've also got a bit of a change to crafting legendary precursors. This is the weapons. So it was discovered before this patch came out that for weaponsmithing, if you started one of the legendary collections, it gave you access to this thing you could just craft loads of for very cheap, and it would push you from 400 to level 500 really easily. Now, you might not know what that means exactly, but that was a pretty big bypass for one of the large disciplines in the game. And so to knock that on the head, and I guess all future occurrences of this potentially happening with other new legendary collections that come in with perhaps future expansions, they now say this: several items involved in the legendary precursor collections can now only be crafted once per account. If these items are misplaced, replacements can be purchased from Hobbs. So you'll only ever craft these things the once, and that's it. I hope that with that change, they don't also continue to bloat the crafting lists to ridiculous levels, but maybe they still will. But yeah, that's definitely about a weaponsmithing crafting bypass that they fixed there. A big chunk of the patch notes, as you can see on screen here, are actually relating to Bloodstone Fen. Small tweaks, the addition of updrafts, changes that people had been asking for, related to some other little changes from a minor patch quite recently. I guess the idea here is it's just to make Bloodstone Fen a bit more playable as a map, since many of the large populations that were once upon a time time there when it was new, they've moved on to other maps. They'll be on places like Lake Doric now, and the map kind of lost a lot of its accessibility when that happened, so the devs are tuning it for, you know, lifetime playability now when there are less players around, which makes an awful lot of sense. Next on the patch notes, they go to talk about fractal changes, a huge chunk. Again, the majority of this is fractals. That's in its own video, as I mentioned before. Moving on, we have another nerf to the skill rebound and some racial skills. So you guys know how I feel about racial skills. I wish they had more of a place in the game. I think that they could perfectly work as their own specialization. We've talked about this many times before. This change is actually completely unrelated to that. It's not related to the fact that they're always going to nerf racial skills to have no place. What this is actually a fix to a ridiculous bug that has existed since the launch of Heart of Thorns, but was only recently known about. So some of these racial skill summons, like the Warband or the Sylvan Hound or the Mark II golems and things that or not Mark II golems, but the assault golems that Asura can summon, when these would die, if you as an elementalist rebound them, they don't die, and then they will never despawn. And so then you can summon another one. You can have 2 up, and then you can have 3 up, and 4 up, and 5 up, and you can have 100 up, 500 up, 1,000 of these allies running around with you. And you can take those 1,000 NPC allies into a raid encounter and annihilate it in seconds solo. This was a thing that people discovered recently. And so a crazy thing. It's amazing how many weird issues have come up with Rebound. There were some other downstate tricks you could play with it when it originally came out as well. That has existed since Heart of Thorns and was only recently discovered by the community. Just think about every single raid that's ever come out. People could have just bypassed if they knew about this bug, and the devs are now fixing that. So that's a pretty cool little change with a fun story behind it. And those are most of the PvE general changes, I think. Now, funnily enough, I'm going to move into sort of the competitive section, but don't turn off, all right? So what I mean by that is PvP and World vs. World. You'd be surprised at the changes that have come in on both PvP and World vs. World on this patch, guys. It is kind of wild. Affecting both game types first is a change to do with a mastery called Noblesse Oblige. So what is Noblesse Oblige, you might ask, Wooden Potatoes? Well, this is the mastery, the core Tyria mastery that came out with Heart of Thorns. That means when you resurrect an ally, you do it faster. And if they're a much lower level than you, you do it even faster. It's a cool idea, a weird idea, an unnecessary idea, given the thousands of tomes of knowledge that the devs seem also content to give us. So there's very rarely a level discrepancy between players in Guild Wars 2 anymore. But it was an interesting mastery. What is crazy about it, though, again, this is something that has been there since Heart of Thorns came out. Apparently, there has been a bug that could cause this mastery to affect competitive PvP and World vs. World, but specifically competitive PvP? Oh my god, why? How? When? I have no idea what would have triggered that bug. But the idea that based on some random PvE progression thing, some players were able to resurrect their allies faster in PvP, that is crazy. That undermines the sense of competitive balance and fair play and taking a PvP scene seriously in Guild Wars 2 to like the next level. It undermines it in a ridiculous way. And so it's very important that gets fixed. I'm not one to try and rag on PvP all the time and say, oh, Guild Wars 2 is uncompetitive, but it is wild to see bugs like that the possibility for that even to happen was a thing. Well, it's been fixed now. I guess we can all breathe a sigh of relief that nobody really discovered it and it became a mainstream bug earlier. Moving on, for PvP specifically, they give some various changes about different maps. There's the new inclusion of meta events for every single PvP map in the game. This I actually think is really exciting. So if you remember when Revenge on the Capricorn came out, or if you remember when the Colosseum map came out, both of these had large meta events that you could do that they were on a timed window to complete, but that would teach you about the mechanics of that map and just encourage people to play the maps because they were new. Well, ArenaNet have taken that idea. Those are now permanent achievements. They're not on a window, and they've done it for all the vanilla maps as well. So there's now a meta achievement and big gold rewards, guys. If you're a PvEer listening to me right now, big gold rewards for going back and playing Forest of Niflheim and playing Kylo and so forth. Speaking of Kylo, this is probably the most dramatic change and very understated by the patch notes. Kylo has essentially become a different map as of this patch No, really, it's totally changed. There is a huge difference here now. So Kylo is a map that has as its central node, classically before the head of the snake, a large building around it called the clock tower. And this clock tower was a destructible environment that players could interact with by smashing its windows or trebbing it to open it up. There were lots of different ways to blink around this area. You could blink onto the roof of it. You could hide in a tunnel beneath it. You could do all kinds of little tricks and very specific technical plays that would have been very confusing to new players. But also, you have to understand, Kylo and this clock tower was a huge focus for the release of Guild Wars 2. Kylo was the first map they ever made, and it's what they were trying to push this game as a PvP game on. And they were showing off the interactable environments and so forth as a major perk of it. Well, this patch has basically done away with the clock tower. It's gone. The patch notes say that the roof is gone, but basically the whole building is different. The node itself has different access points to get to it. It has little line of sight posts that you can hide behind. The tunnel underneath the clock tower is gone. The jumping puzzles on the sides of the clock tower that most professions would have to do to get up quickly are totally different and much easier. They're basically gone. The windows that you could smash before are gone. There are other changes to the map. The trebuchet repair kits are now much closer to Treb. I think perhaps this is to incentivize more play of Treb, which has fell out of use since the Heart of Thorns power creep. And maybe they're hoping that might even see a thing at the higher end now. At the bases that you spawn at, there are now extra exits that take you straight to your team's trebuchet. This stops people being able to spawn camp you. It means that other classes besides Thief or people with blinks can get to Treb very quickly at the start of matches. Again, maybe incentivizing a little bit more trebuchet play. You can't, as a player, destroy terrain at all with Trebs on Kylo any longer. There are a huge amount of changes. As to that last one, that we, the players, can't destroy terrain, you actually now on Trebuchet see the terrain naturally get destroyed at certain intervals as the match progresses. Remember when Revenge on the Capricorn came out and the boats sailed in and started destroying elements of the map? Well, that's what's happening on Kylo now. I haven't managed to get in there and play a game to see how that functions, but that could actually be really huge and shift the way that the match is played and viewed in a pretty substantive manner. Because if, as the match goes on, it naturally destroys the shortcut entrances into the clock tower at the sides as the match goes, that could be really interesting. If it now means that some of the rarer elements of the map's geometry get destroyed, like the pipes at the side or some of the buildings near the player's spawns that no one would ever tread before, if those are now getting destroyed, again, that's a big shake-up to the map. Like I said at the start, Kylo is basically a different map. It's very surprising to me that the devs went with such a big change. It's going to have different blink spots. It's going to be viewed in a totally different manner. Now, I'm not a pro player, so you don't want my opinion on whether this is actually good or whether it's objectively worse. But what I can say, and I do feel very confident in saying, is that this has probably brought the complexity of maneuvering around Kylo more into line with the other Guild Wars 2 PvP maps. Kylo was a bit of an aberration compared to the other maps, and now it's much more in line with stuff like Colosseum or Revenge of the Capricorn or even maybe Forest of Niflhel, right? So we'll see how the higher end players take to it, but I would recommend anybody goes in there and sees how they feel about it. I'll say as well, though, that I'm definitely going to miss, even if these are all good changes, I'm going to miss those epic clock tower roof explosions that the game was once marketed to me on. So yeah. And lastly, we have World vs. World. Yes, World vs. World. Now, the entirety of the time that I've been recording this video, I've actually been auto-attacking on a warrior who's regenerating, trying to break into one of the World vs. World keeps. Why am I doing that? This is in the desert borderlands. Why am I doing that? Well, because there's been a pretty big change to the desert borderlands too. So first of all, before we get into that, it's just some generic changes. There were some minor changes to scoring. Some of the tonics that have slowly been disabled in World vs. World have now been re-enabled, and like their functionality slightly shifted. As I mentioned earlier, Noblesse Oblige, that actually no longer affects World vs. World. It's been disabled, and I think that should change the way that big Zerg fights function. You'll remember that around 6 to 7 months ago, I believe, they stopped you being able to res defeated people while in combat, and they're continuing to push that. But let's talk about the desert borderlands. So One of the biggest complaints about the Desert Borderlands, as far as I understand, is that it's too big of a map. Now, in terms of the mechanics that are on it, the flavor of the mechanics that are on it, the environments that are on it, I think this map is incredible. I think it is beautiful. It is an astounding work of art, and I would love to have real, decent, good fights on there. It's one of those things that I think if that map had really taken off, I might have seen myself invest myself much more into World vs. World since Heart of Thorns than I ultimately did in the end. But it's had that outstanding problem of being too large of a map for a long time, and it seems that the devs are trying to address that here. What they've done is a big shrine rebalance. So the shrines are the mechanics associated with the 3 keeps. They give the teams that hold them and also the keep at the same time various buffs. There have been rebalances, but the final perk on these shrines now is all about maneuvering around the map. They're essentially jump pads that move you very quickly all over the place. So for one of the keeps, that's straight up it. You get these jump pads that let you launch yourself through that area of the borderland, and this idea of it being such a massive map now is not so much a problem because people can move very quickly. But they've done it in really flavorful ways. The air keep, for example, which is what I'm trying to break into right now as I record, is you actually get, once you have all the shrines and the air keep, you get transformed into an eagle and can glide around the map, they say. How cool does that sound? And I hope I can get some footage for you all. If I do, it will be on the background right now. If not, maybe you'll have to look for it elsewhere. But turning into eagles, that sounds amazing. And for the fire keep, it's like tornadoes that are launching people around. It had the rebalances to the shrines, but that's not all. The center of the map has also changed significantly, all right? It has been changed, as they say in the patch notes, so that it is easier to traverse. Again, in keeping with this idea of letting people meet up a bit quicker and getting actual fights happening on the map. And then, beyond that, not only has the middle been changed to become easier to traverse, an entirely new mechanic, well, not totally new mechanic, has been added to the Borderlands. That's Bloodlust. Borderlands Bloodlust, and the 5 shrines associated with it now exist on the Borderlands. So the Desert Borderlands got a ton of stuff. It's got the shrines and it has Bloodlust at the same time. It's pretty huge, big changes there, and I'm very, very, very curious, as always, for some more informed World vs. World players to get in on the comments, tell me what you think about this and how it actually pans out in the end. I'll try and keep you guys in the loop. So yeah, I mean, most of the time, guys, when a patch like the Head of the Snake comes out, I'm mostly talking about PvE, but I think that that's been some pretty big changes in both PvP and World vs. World in this one. And for that reason, just on paper, it's looking to be a very, very solid patch for most players of this game. The Raiders got something, the casual PvE has got something, and both PvP and World vs. World. That's pretty awesome. So there you go, guys. That's most of the changes. Now, as I said at the start of the video, if you want more detailed looks at any of these topics, look no further than the portal, which will be on the screen in just a second. There were a couple of Black Lion changes for what it's worth. There's 12 new hair colors. There's new minis. The Black Lion chest is changed to the Doric chest, and it's got some new stuff in there. But maybe that'll be something to look at for a later date. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you're pumped. The patch is live right now. If this excites you and you want to get other people into the game, or you don't even play, remember as well, Heart of Thorns is half price right now. And so if you want to take advantage of that 50% off, then now's not going to be a better opportunity. There's a link in the description to a special affiliate link that helps me if you use it. But either way, guys, I hope you get in there. I hope you have some fun. Stick about for the portal, like I say, in 3, 2, 1. Thanks for watching, guys.